End of July, the IEC will know the outcome of the inquiry led by the former Deputy Chief Justice, Dikgang Mseneka, into the possibility of holding free and fair elections under the present conditions. One of the overriding difficulties is predicting what the situation will be 4 months from now. Will we still be at lockdown level 2, or will matters have worsened? The second difficulty is that the IEC may have the capacity to provide hand sanitizer and take temperatures at every voting station, but that by itself cannot counteract irresponsible human behavior. We know that some people do not wear masks consistently or properly. Even if you can just take a walk through the streets outside here in Durban and everywhere and count the number of people you see wearing their mask below their chins. If those same people all on one day use public transport and queue at voting station, this virus will be highly mobile. And how will those who are self-isolating, whether due to infections or close contact, be able to vote? The chances are they will leave their homes and potentially spread the virus. Preventing them from going to vote will be an infringement of their democratic rights. We simply cannot risk plunging our country deeper into crisis. If infection rates soar, a harder lockdown will be inevitable, and the consequences for our economy could be irreparable. This is why the IFP has been calling for the postponement of these elections. It is not an easy call to make because we have already put in all the work to prepare for the elections. As you will have seen from the recent by-election results, the IFP is more ready to contest these elections. There is a good reason to believe that the IFP will have a strong showing. In fact, based on the by-election results, we appear to be the only opposition party on an upward trajectory. This makes sense because in the present circumstances of national crisis, citizens are desperate for a voice of reason and a leadership of integrity. The IFP's strengths are coming to bear in this difficult time. We have a tremendous opportunity to increase our support in these elections and take over leadership in a number of municipalities, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. We are ready to do that. We are ready to contest these elections, but politics cannot take precedence over the need to save lives and protect families. We therefore call on Cabinet and the National Coronavirus Command Council to place the interest of our people first. The IFP is extremely concerned by the snail's pace adopted in the rollout of the vaccines. You may have heard His Excellency Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi speaking in Parliament last week Wednesday during the debate on the presidency's budget vote. He mentioned that at the age of 92, he is still awaiting his vaccination. How will any of our vulnerable citizens access the vaccine in good time? Other countries are already vaccinating their youth, having covered the older generation. South Africa must move faster. We are losing lives unnecessarily at this point, and we are losing productivity, which is impacting on the livelihoods of countless families and further adding unneeded strain on an already fragile economy. There is a growing sense of distrust among our people for the government's ability to roll out vaccine timeously and handle this pandemic effectively. A major cause for distrust is the level of corruption that is becoming evident within the ruling party. According to the Special Investigation Unit, some 14 billion rand of COVID-19 spending has been identified as irregular spending thus far. This is a wholesale looting of money set aside to protect our people, save lives, and ensure livelihoods. The latest revelation of corruption involving the Minister of Health are disastrous. For the Minister of Health represents the whole of government in our fight against the pandemic. Our citizens look to the Minister of Health for reassurance that the government is on top of this fight. The minister's integrity, like the president's, must be unassailable. It must be absolutely beyond reproach, lest South Africans completely lose hope. In this regard, whilst we await the SIU to complete their investigation, we take note that this morning the SIU has opened a case against the Minister of Health. This says the writing is on the wall that the Digital Vibes contract with the Department of Health was irregular, and it is up to now to President Ramaphosa to respond to this glaring act of corruption, and his action will be a defining feature of the fight against corruption. In a normal country and a normal world, the Minister of Health should be doing an honorable thing to step down in the face of the evidence available. The evidence emerging from the Zondo Commission on state capture is really damning. One wonders how the ruling party can emerge from this with a semblance of authority as leaders and representatives of the people. The growing trust deficit, as I said, leaves our people looking for a viable alternative. The IFP is that alternative. We have actual experience in governance at national, provincial, and local level, and we have an excellent track record at all levels. Our biggest draw card, however, is the integrity of the IFP. Integrity and honest leadership we laid at the heart of this party, which were laid at the heart of this party by our founder, continues to define us as the IFP. I want to thank our founder, Prince Buthelezi, who continues to provide guidance and wisdom to the IFP. As you know, our elective conference in 2019, the IFP asked Prince Buthelezi to perform this role, and he was conferred the title President Emeritus of the IFP. Since then, he and I have worked hand in hand to take the IFP forward into the next chapter of its legacy. I am grateful to Prince Buthelezi because, as you will imagine, it was not easy stepping into a leadership role that had been filled for so many years and with such skill by a leader of his caliber. Many wondered at that time how I would fill such giant shoes. Prince Buthelezi has consistently supported my leadership of the IFP. He has openly told our members and leaders that I am the president, referring to me, making it clear that he has fully handed over the reins. We have worked together extremely well because of this clarity. I respect his wisdom and experience, and he respects my vision and leadership. This, of course, irks our opponents tremendously. They dearly wanted to see the IFP falter when Prince Buthelezi stepped down. Indeed, even now, almost 2 years later, there are still efforts afoot to paint the IFP as a divided party, with one faction supporting me and the other supporting our President Emeritus. Tragically, some of our members have fallen for this, believing that either he or I need their support against the other. This is simply not the case. Regrettably, these wedge drivers have been, to an extent, been aided and abated by certain sections of the media in advancing this agenda of sowing division. The IFP is one party. We are who we are because of Prince Buthelezi. And building on his legacy, we are moving forward. No one can convince us to abandon that legacy because it is our greatest asset. A disturbing trend has emerged in the recent past wherein, when the party has taken decision, insofar discipline is concerned, certain quotas have opined that those people are my supporters or that the party is targeting my supporters. I am not the president of a faction. I am not a president of mischief makers. I am the president of the IFP in its entirety. I have therefore sounded a call to all our members not to be misled. We need to act with discipline and restore unity wherever it may have been shaken. When there are any divides, the gap needs to be closed because there is no cause for division. It only serves to weaken a party that South Africa needs desperately. Our country needs us to be strong. Fortunately, we are. The fact that we took Upongolo municipality away from the ANC in the last by-election speaks volumes about the IFP's strength at this point. We can make further inroads, and we intend to do so for the sake of our people. Whether the local government elections take place in October or at a later date, the IFP will triumph. For those who seek to undermine our work, I want to say, not in my name. Do not use my name as an excuse to divide our party. I do not want supporters who think that I am their president before I am the president of the IFP. We are all IFP. We are working together with one cause for one purpose. Let us not forget that this is a voluntary organization. Those who join the IFP are submitting themselves to the values and policies of the IFP. Values like unity, servant leadership, and discipline. These values speak to our character. They are the foundation that keeps the IFP strong. We will not allow our character to be changed or the foundations of our party to be undermined by few individuals. Accordingly, we have had to make some difficult decisions, and we have even expelled councillors in order to ensure discipline and protect our unity. But we have already been vindicated for having done what was needed. I, as the president of the IFP, want now to send a clear message to all our supporters that factionalism has no place in the IFP. It is damaging in the extreme. From this point on, anyone who seeks to divide the IFP or acts as though the IFP is divided will be seen as deliberately trying to destroy the party, and we will take an action against that person. We will do every means to protect our unity from anyone who wants to undermine it. As we approach the local government elections, the political battle for hearts and minds is certainly heating up, and we have no doubt that all sorts of tactics will be employed against the IFP, particularly considering the threat we pose to the ruling party. But as I have said, we are ready. Bring it on. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will allow the opportunity to engage as from now onwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that very thorough statement that you have made. Madam Kiza, please circulate the copies to our colleagues, and then we will take questions. Please just introduce yourselves and the media house you represent, and then we will discuss.
My question has to do with the latest statements that the IFP released following what happened in Unity. You have accused the ANC or the ANC for culture in the context of trying to destabilize some of your municipalities. I just want to find out from the IFP, what is the feeling behind this?
No, but yeah, because I understand you, so I can take
Okay, the President to respond. So, all right, can we just take one so that we don't lose the questions, right, Mr. President?
Thank you very much, my sister, for this question. Although one would have preferred that we focus on what I was talking about, but there is no problem in addressing this question. I'm sure the whole country of South Africa knows that COGTA is moving forward and backward in as far as Ngutu municipality is concerned. At one stage, Minister National refused to concur for the introduction of Section 139 at Ngutu. And again, COGTA has been spending money in the courts, fighting political battles with the Ngutu municipality. All the statement was saying there are so many municipalities that are not doing very well, where corruption is rife, poor service deliveries are always the constant complaint of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. COGTA should be focusing on those municipalities. The money they are using going to court to fight with Ngutu should be redirected to the services of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. As far as the IFP is concerned, we see the behavior of COGTA in KwaZulu-Natal, in particular at Ngutu, as a political battle fought through COGTA. We have a history. You know, there was a rerun of the whole elections at Ngutu in 2017, where the ruling party was beaten hands down, coming with all resources, with food parcels, using every money of KwaZulu-Natal. The whole top six of the ANC came down to Ngutu. The IFP beat them hand down. We know they never accepted that, and they will be fighting until the end of this term. And they must come on. We are going to take them head on again, whether this year or next year. The IFP is delivering services at Ngutu. We do not want COGTA to be used as a political tool to fight against the governance at Ngutu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Second question. Mr. Duma.
Mr. Hlabisa, Postcode Duma from Municipal. I just have two questions. The first one is your call for Minister Velenkosini, the Minister of Health, to step down not premature? And I ask this because there was a debate which you saw, I think, sometime last week or this week, I can't really remember. And the issue was that he failed to appear before a committee on the claim that the matter against him was subjudice, when in fact it isn't up to this point, because no charges actually been prepared against him. And MPs wanted him to account on the basis before the Minister of Health. And at this point, it's only a case that has been opened by the DA. What precedents do you think that will set? I mean, to make an example, if someone opens a case against your colleague, Mr. Mkhuleko, and 2 or 3 media articles that paint him in a negative light and written, and then he must step down, what do you think, what precedents do you think that kind of call will set? The second question has to do with the IFP's real plans. I was really interested in hearing about how, for example, you are preparing councillors, creating a program for people who are going to be servants of communities in the actual elections that are coming in. You are running certain programs for that? Can you just shed light on that account?
Let me start first with the issue regarding the Minister of Health. Yes, we are aware that the case that has been opened by SIU this morning is with regard to the 2 directors of the Digital Vibes company. But now, the cloud around Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Dr. Zweli Mkhize is in the forefront of the fight against COVID-19. He should not be someone tainted. The whole cloud around him, every time when he will appear, that cloud will also appear over him. It will make the people of South Africa lose confidence on him. In a democratic country, when you have so much allegations of corruption, the best thing to do is to step aside so that a person who will project a picture of the government that is clean, fighting against corruption, that will win the confidence of the people, takes charge, because the Minister of Health, we do not want to hide the fact that he did it very well in terms of fighting the pandemic, projecting the good image. But what has happened is very unfortunate for the country. We need someone who is clean. That is why I said we will wait for the SIU final investigation. But in a true democratic country, and in a country where you want to demonstrate that corruption is enemy number one, this cloud was enough for the president to take an action. It will remain, therefore, to the president of the country to demonstrate. When he says he fights corruption, the perception that has been created and is convincing in the eyes of the people, how he responds to it. On the second question, the call that the IFP is making now, let me say firstly, we are ready for the local government elections. Our plans are intact. All our systems have been activated, but we are facing the reality. The reality is the rise of the infections posing a possibility of the third wave. You can, on this one hand, raise the reality and say, government, be responsible. You can't go ahead with the elections 4 months down the line from now while we see that infection rate is increasing every day. You can't raise that on one hand and on the other hand and you say, here are my plans. Once the government makes a decision, as I have indicated, that on the 21st of July, the former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneka will present a report to IEC to say, is it right or not fertile to go ahead? Once the government has taken a decision, we will then call a brief like this one, where we will say, now that the government has postponed or not postponed the elections, here are our plans, because we will be knowing on what date are we working on. I think now it will be not a right thing to do. The right thing to do is to call upon the government, and the government must respond accordingly to the reality. The figures are rising every day, and the threat of the third wave is a reality in front of us. We shouldn't risk with the lives of our people.
Thanks, Ms. Khona. Right, let me go to SABC and now come to you guys. Right,
I want to check on the issue of Yasemtendani. What is happening in Tendani? I understand the IFP recalled some councillors and there was a problem of by the IEC not being able to hold by-elections, but there's been some chaos as well in a couple of days ago. And second, and another question is that what is the issue or the fate of the deputy national chairperson at the moment? Because we understand that at some point he was having some challenges with the party.
Yeah, with regard to that matter, our national spokesperson has been on the media consistently on those matters. I will request him to respond on that one.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Mtonjaneni, let me say, as the President has said, we have taken decisions which we communicated because the mayor and 4 other councillors defined themselves outside the IFP when they joined the bandwagon of the ANC in trying to remove an IFP speaker and deputy mayor at Mtonjaneni. They went through a disciplinary process in terms of the Constitution 11.10, in which the National Council of the party on an urgent basis met and found them guilty of having transgressed and a failure to adhere actually to party instructions. And they were dismissed from the party, and that was communicated. The issue of the by-election is not of our doing. we are ready for a by-election, but once a date has been announced, you are within 90 days of an election, the IEC no longer holds by-elections. So the dismissal took place at a time when they would not have been declared as vacancies for by-elections, but the PR councillors have been replaced, and we have appointed a mayor at Mthonjana and made replacements to the ESCO accordingly. The Secretary General has communicated that, and it has been implemented at Mthonjana. And so we have noted with great concern the protests that have taken place at Mthonjana. There too, again, confirming the kind of behavior which is inconsistent with the IFP, because those protests were instigated by those councillors whom we had dismissed. Secondly, the appeals process is very clear in the Constitution. So if they want to appeal, they know what they have to do. But there's no appeal in the street. There's no appeal through a protest. There's no IFP office there in the road. And if they are truly IFP, they would have actually defined themselves consistently with what the Constitution says. So we condemn in the strongest possible terms the violence that has taken place and the behavior which they have demonstrated, because it's quite selfish to go and instigate the community. We have received a report from the leadership of the King Hlabisa district and Mthonjana constituency specifically on recent events which have taken place. The Secretary General gave direction that the wards which were affected by the decision must be engaged, the people, the IFP leadership in the various wards, the branches, to explain the set of circumstances which led to the expulsions. So a meeting was called to go and do exactly that. Now, these rogue individuals then go and instigate the community again to go and cause disruptions at that meeting. Now, some of the leaders that are there, whilst they were there in an IFP capacity, may be office bearers in certain places, and they're entitled to protection, because protection is not for anyone official business. You're not only at risk then. And they are legitimate and legal protection, find themselves now having to protect and defend people who are causing disruptions. The SAPS, having been informed of that there will be a meeting, sent one officer there in a situation that has been volatile of people who have been protesting. So the SAPS themselves have not covered themselves in any glory in how they've handled this matter. Instead of dealing with the troublemakers, they've now gone and targeted the security of the office bearers of the various places. It's an abuse of state resources on one hand, but on the other hand, it's a perpetuation of the reckless and irresponsible behavior of those whom were fired by the party. And in fact, it's a vindication that the president said in his statement, the recent events. So as far as we are concerned, the SAPS must do their work without any fear or favor and without any bias on this matter. So as far as we are concerned, we have done that which we were expected to do, and the decisions have been implemented, and the PR councillors of the IFP will be seconded to the affected wards to make sure that in between now and the election, those communities remain serviced with a councillor. But as in fact, the final point is to say, all this mess, all this chaos, this risk to stability and service delivery and to life sits squarely on the shoulders of the councillors that the party expelled, because they are instigating and causing trouble in that part of the world. So I think that gives the explanation of where we are, and we continue to give full support to the leadership of Mthonjana and King as they navigate this very difficult and turbulent time of these rogue elements who are hell-bent on a self-enrichment project. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, there was one issue of the Deputy SG,
Oh, yes.
But it's fine. I can quickly go to that one. The disciplinary processes is what is done by all political parties throughout the country and throughout the world. If you want to maintain order, stability, whenever there is something that you discover that it did not go the right way, you need to institute a disciplinary process. And it's an internal matter. With regard to the Deputy SG, we have finalized our disciplinary process and he is back in office as we have concluded the investigation and the matter is closed.
We communicated the decision in public.
And the decision was communicated in public.
That's good. Yes. Fabio.
Inkatha Freedom Party President Velenkosini Hlabisa briefing the media on the IFP's readiness for the upcoming local government elections. He says they've been bolstered by the results of the recently held by-elections and support for his party has grown, retelling that story by their founder, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, that he's still waiting for his vaccine, even with the second phase focusing on senior citizens. And then goes on to assure their supporters and members that him and the former leaders work together harmoniously, that the notion of Hlabisa supporters and Buthelezi supporters is a misnomer. Mr. Hlabisa also weighed in an interesting way on the revelations of corruption involving the Ministry of Health, saying it's disastrous. He says citizens look to the minister for reassurance that the country is handling this pandemic. He says the fact that the SIU this morning opened a case against the Minister of Health is an indicator that there's something to answer to. But of course, he had to clarify those facts later, that it's not against the minister, but it's the company Digital Vibes itself opening up a case against its employees. But we'll give you more detail on that story in later shows here on the SABC News Channel.